Hey folks, welcome to an episode of the Artenders with Mac and Dan. I am Dan, he is Mac.
Howdy.
We are reviewing a movie that, according to Mac, was selected by the people. I would like to dispute that. See, Mac put a poll on TikTok, and one of the
Are
selections...
you going to say that I'm the one that did this? Okay, go ahead.
I mean, it's true.
I guess technically.
Don't technically me. You did. Who did it?
Well, okay, I gave two options.
Right.
Sure.
No. Yes, you're the one that put up the poll, is what I'm
Sure.
trying to
Okay,
say.
yes. Oh, fine,
you
fine.
gave two options, one of them being Uncharted, which is what we're reviewing today. Now, when most people, I would think of Uncharted, they think of the video game series, right? And you just put Uncharted. Instead, no. Mac was referring to the movie Uncharted.
Yeah.
That came out the year of our Lord 2022, starring Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, and that's what we're reviewing today, not the game series.
No.
I think I want to put this episode under protest because I think you have misled the people. What are your thoughts?
You think that they thought that they were voting for video game?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think they were pretty well, because this is the thing. It was going up against Love is Blind.
Right.
And the
That's a television show, correct?
television show, correct? And the new season very recently came out. So I think that it was inferred that we're going to watch something that's coming out right now. It's coming out recently. And it's either going to be this very, very popular TV show that's coming out with the new season, or this movie that's coming out this month.
And so, like, sure, no. Once again, I'm wanting you to know that this is being recorded under protest. Okay?
Got it. I'll file it in my.
Why are you doing it? Hold on.
imaginary.
So to paint this visual picture that I'm looking at for the audience, Mac is holding an espresso cup in his hand, but he has the saucer in another hand, but like he's like doing like twirlies with it, like he's the leader of a parade. What's going on here?
It's just that I start talking with my hands and then I can't help myself. I just kind of start, do my thing.
Okay, so this movie, like I said, came out in 2022.
We can both agree that we would rather have watched or rather have played the video game, correct?
Yes. Okay. We're gonna get into that into detail.
I just want to preface that.
So this movie, starring, like I said, Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, is based off of the video game franchise for PlayStation, Uncharted, of the same title. And it is about Nathan Drake, this treasure hunter. That's really kind of it. And each game sort of has its own story, and there's not really much. It takes a page out of Indiana Jones, a more modern take on that, but more or less, it's not reinventing any sort of wheel. And this video game series was developed and published under Naughty Dog, and is one of their most popular and successful works, period.
Do you know any other games produced by Naughty Dog?
The Last of Us, which we are currently doing a sleeper pick for.
That's what I'm thinking of.
I believe they originally developed Crash Bandicoot as well.
Whoa.
And I want to say Ratchet and Clank, but I'm not entirely certain.
So they're
on
big
that.
into the indie game market.
Maybe Sly Cooper. It's one of those. They're big into the. Did you say indie game? No.
Those are just popular games.
Those are just popular games.
Okay, well, they make some good games.
Yeah, they just make good games.
Sorry, they make gamer games. Like if I were just like to pick someone out on the street and ask them about any of these games, I guess other than Uncharted, like The Last of Us or Crash Bandicoot, I don't think that they would be like common knowledge games.
Stop. I would say they are common knowledge games.
Really? You think
A
so?
lot of people, at least from years prior, know Crash Bandicoot.
Okay.
Right? Was very popular in the 90s, early 2000s. Okay. And then the Uncharted, just became a movie and was a very successful franchise. And The Last of Us was a very successful franchise as well, even though there are only 2 games, right? And they're making an HBO show now with The Last of Us.
They are?
Yes. But all of that to say, once again, trying to get to the plot
Sorry.
of this episode. It is a movie that was directed by Ruben Fleischer. And it was produced under, PlayStation and Sony as well. And once again, it's about Nathan Drake being a treasure hunter, but this is more like a prologue. And he meets Sully, who is his like father figure mentor, played by Mark Wahlberg. And they're just trying to find a treasure, and that's really it. And the biggest thing about it is that, is it based off of the video game franchise? Sure. Does it do anything different to really signify and differentiate itself from the video game series? No. Is that a good thing? It depends on how you look at it. Right? So it does fill that Uncharted formula pretty well, right? But the thing is, and I'll just go, off the bat and say this on the front end, that it's just another action movie.
Yeah.
And so then it begs the question, okay, so what made the Uncharted franchise so successful? The thing is about video games that what they can get away with more than movies is that when the story in video games are mediocre, they can be covered up by whatever gameplay is surrounding it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And even the first Uncharted is nothing to write home about. It's a pretty average game.
Yeah.
Right? But it garnered enough attention that it was able to get itself very good sequels.
But what made those sequels so good?
What made those sequels so good was the gameplay improved and the stories improved, right? And even though the stories, once again, are not the craziest things, I don't think the story was that good until 3 and then really until Uncharted 4. They can hide behind the gameplay of the games themselves. When you're a movie and the story suffers, there's very little things being able to hide it, right?
Sure.
So some of the action can hide it as well. We can sit here, watch Aquaman, and have a great freaking time, even though the story in that movie is absolute garbage. But
I've never seen Aquaman.
I've seen bits and pieces.
Get out.
And it's thrilling. It is.
Now Get Out. That's a movie. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for derailing.
It was a comment. It was a dad joke.
So this movie, the action is fine, right? The action is decent here and there, but the story and the characters and the acting are so profoundly mediocre to bad. It is difficult to more so actively enjoy the experience of this because the whole time you're thinking to yourself, either A, I can just play the games and have a better time that way, or B, I can just watch a different action movie and have a better time that way.
True.
It doesn't differentiate itself from either of those capacities, nor does it really warrant its own existence. So even though it's fine and it's serviceable at best, we have direct things to compare it to that it's just like, what are you doing? Obviously, the story is not interesting really at all. And the what is challenging Tom Holland's character of Nathan Drake are very little things. Halfway through the movie, I'm not really sure anymore why he's doing what he's doing, because he wants to, right? And so that works in a video game because that's not the focus. But in a movie, him just wanting to go on a treasure hunt is not good enough reasoning. And it doubly so when the entire movie they keep talking about his brother Sam, his brother Sam, his brother Sam, when Sam does not motivate any of the action in that film.
Right.
You cannot keep mentioning his brother over and over again like he's important, but then not have that device drive any sort of motivation or action for what these characters do in the long run.
Was a
scene.
Was a scene at the very beginning.
Yeah, it was a scene at the very beginning, and was a small sort of bickering between Nate and Sully.
Yeah.
At the end of the second act. I'm sorry. I was just it's a rant because I enjoy the Uncharted franchise. I think it's a fun series of games. I think they're worth playing.
Yeah.
They're interesting stuff. And so it's disappointing to see a movie, and I was kind of expecting this too, but I wanted the expectations to be, superseded, right? It's disappointing to watch a movie based off of something you really enjoy just not meet the standard that the source material meets.
Right.
In a way that it doesn't even have its own character is a big thing for me.
Oh, sure.
Now, the movie, in my opinion.
Right. Now, I think this is where we have a very good chance to start talking about why did it not live up to the hype, or not even the hype, the expectations? Why did it not live up to its big brother's
existence?
Existence as one of the better video game stories that we've experienced, of our childhood
or
growing up.
experiences rather,
Right.
Like especially during the PS3, the PlayStation 3 days, and now we're in the PlayStation 5 days. But during those days, Uncharted was like making the rounds.
Yes.
Anybody who played any sort of video game knew of Uncharted during that time. It was the thing to play.
So Daniel, why do you think this video game was so successful, and why do you think that the movie was so unsuccessful? What do you think happened in the making of this film that made it specifically was it just the fact that it was so commercial and so clearly a money grab?
It was clearly commercial. Now, I don't think Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg are bad actors. They're pretty good actors, right?
I think they've proven themselves.
They have proven themselves.
Sure.
Like, Tom Holland is fantastic in the Spider-Man films, and we've seen Mark Wahlberg be a great actor in movies like The Fighter, for example.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, but now we kind of get a sense already, funnily enough, of like what their thing is, right? What their baseline sort of acting ability is. Any actor has a sort of baseline, right? And so I would imagine to accuse the director in this film, Ruben Fleischer, of just not extracting and not pushing those actors far enough, because even though Tom Holland is in his acting ability is nothing like the Nathan Drake we see from the games, and that's fine. And even though Mark Wahlberg is nothing like the Sully that we see from the games, that's fine. But they're so, not clearly, but it seems evident to me that they're relatively phoning in their acting performances and are not really challenged from an emotional, dramatic point of view. Nothing is really pushing those characters dramatically to the edge, and therefore very little is being asked from the actors in terms of the director, and I imagine the director is what he's trying to focus on is making the action super big. Now, to answer a previous question, right, that what you had of what made the game so successful was they were really taking a good stab of blending the sort of movie cinematic storytelling into video games. Many games have tried it prior, but this one has really refined that wheel, right? Uncharted.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Has really made that wheel super
Is that because of the cutscenes?
Clean. It's not just because of the cutscenes, but it's because of the pacing, the characters, the locale, it's the setting. It's everything in cohesion with it together, and it's the trickling of information and the discoveries, and still having a good sense of adventure. It's the blending of those two things, right? But then you have the Uncharted movie where they can't do that blending of game and movie and do that blending really well because they're just doing movie. And so then, because they're not set out to, really smooth out and wax any sort of wheel, then there is just another action movie. Now, but Mac, I know prior to recording this episode here, you were mentioning that this movie was not necessarily in like a development hell, but it was certainly turned over a lot by a lot of directors were originally signed on to the project. And all very different directors, even some writers too. Yeah. Seth Rogen was even slated to write this, or asked at the very least to write this at one point.
Yes.
Right. So what can you give me behind a little bit of the story of that?
So apparently, so there have been reports dating all the way back to 2008 of this Uncharted project being in the works, right? Yeah. Now, the people that we know that have been rumored to have touched the project at some point, whether they be people that were just asked and said yes and then never actually got to it, or people that actually put their hands on it, changed something about the project, and then were removed from the project. People like David O. Russell, Neil Berger, Joe Carnahan, Sean Levy, Dan Trachtenberg, and Travis Knight. Now, it sounds to me a little bit like Bohemian Rhapsody, and that because of such turnover, no matter who touched what, where, or whatnot, in terms of the story, not people,
was not accusing
making
you
sure,
of
making
that.
sure.
It's okay. You
But
didn't have to.
Because of that, because there was definitely some crossover from some contamination from person to person.
But I do have a question.
Yeah.
Now, those directors were like signed on to start the project, but were any of them involved with production? Obviously, the studio is just trying to get anybody to do the project, right?
Right.
But were they involved in the production and then it was turned over in the middle of production, like Bohemian Rhapsody or like Ant-Man, for example?
So there was not another director that filmed with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
But these people all were very influential in the storyboarding and in the actual writing process.
I see, in the pre-production process.
In all pre-production.
Okay.
And so I think because of that, no matter how charming Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg are, which we can tell that was the main tool in their bag they were trying to use here.
And even then, it didn't really work.
Didn't really work. I agree, and we're going to get to that. It really did end up being just identityless. It was lacking a little oomph because it was very clearly no longer a passion project. I think, like you were saying, it's difficult for me as someone who did really like the Uncharted video game series. It's difficult for me to go into this and them technically be telling the story of Uncharted, but also technically not.
Well, which I'm fine with them telling their own story. Do you have qualms with that?
I think it's more like
because if they were just telling a story from the games, then I would just go and
play the games. Absolutely. I think that either tell a different story, or if you're going to change things, make it a specific choice. It felt like they were making choices out of convenience rather than for story's sake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm with you there.
Like it didn't feel like, what would actually be a really interesting take on this? What if instead of the brooding action hero, we got kind of like a boyish charm, like kind of high comedy type, like Tom Holland? It felt like, who can we get that's really famous to play this part? And that would sell a lot of tickets.
And who is young right now.
Right.
And so if we spin this into a franchise for the next 5 to 10 years, who can be relatively still in shape and young enough to continue doing what they're doing?
And who's magically, very coincidentally, on another Sony contract. Let's go get him. I think that being very clearly part of it made it feel a little like choices out of convenience rather than choices for artistry's sake.
Sure. And it didn't pay off in the movie anyways, right?
No.
Like I don't think anybody's gonna watch this movie, walk out and be like, man, thank God it was Tom Holland, right?
I fucking agree.
When we watch Spider-Man, and I'm sorry that we keep comparing this to Spider-Man, we're not gonna compare this to The Impossible, okay? We're gonna compare this to did you just spit at The Impossible?
No, I didn't spit. I was kind
of
laughing.
Movie.
It was
Ewan
almost like
McGregor.
a beatbox laugh. Oh, Ewan McGregor's fucking stellar.
Yeah.
And we're gonna come back to another Spider-Man comparison. By the way, go ahead.
And so we keep comparing Tom Holland to Spider-Man because a lot of people, including us, I would safe to say, know Tom Holland from Spider-Man, and he does a really good job in that.
I'd say so, yeah.
But then also at the same time, you watch this movie, if you had watched the Spider-Man movies previously, and you're like, oh, Peter Parker and Nathan Drake are just very similar.
Very similar, yeah.
And so
and I've seen Tom Holland do other things before.
Yeah.
Like he is capable of not being Peter Parker. It's just that it was very clear that he was hired for this project, told to be charming, and then just kind of like let go.
Yeah.
It's just
and
like,
so
okay, go.
And so once again, it was that sort of mix between like, what is the acting baseline? Okay, that seems to be Tom Holland's acting baseline when he needs to be charismatic hero.
Yep.
And then the director was not asking for much.
Nope.
Because like Tom Holland in the Spider-Man movies.
Just his name at this point. It's Spider-Man.
He is great in those dramatic moments.
Yeah.
I am thoroughly impressed by his work in those movies. I saw this movie, Uncharted, and I was like, wow, those dramatic scenes stunk. Not because, not just because they were directed poorly. And I'm sure like Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg as like actors were not really like listening to each other for XYZ reasons. It doesn't, at this point, it doesn't really matter. But it was just a shame to watch. It was a shame to watch because it was like, oh, this is the baseline. We are all phoning it in. And shout out to the man who really, really phoned it in, Antonio Banderas.
Antonio. There's a reason that we haven't seen Antonio on a major stage in a while. And it is because I don't think the guy necessarily it seemed like he wanted to be there all that much.
Well, if I had that script, I wouldn't really want to be there either. And so
I'm sure he got paid though.
Yeah, it was one of those like and Antonio Banderas, it was one of those like last name in the credits.
Yeah, he's the face in the corner of the poster.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so you think throughout watching the movie that he is the antagonist and he is pretty boring and not very interesting and is sort of like dark and a little just a tinge edgy, but he's like he wants this. This is his magnum opus. He's gonna do what it takes to get this. If it takes killing my father in cold blood and somehow getting away with it, even though there are too many logistical shit to worry about, whatever.
That's broad daylight, by the way.
In broad daylight, in a very clean car, in
very
the inside.
public space with no tinted windows.
Exactly, and you were just seen with him as well. Goodness gracious. But, and then sort of, probably, 2/3 of the way through the movie, then the real antagonist kills Antonio Banderas.
Dun, dun,
and
dun.
But it was the moment that Antonio Banderas' character, Moncada, that was his name. I'm just going to do it with an English dialect. Moncada. The moment that he was because it takes too long. Takes too long for my mouth. Weird way to phrase that phrasing.
Could you give it to us just for shits and gigs?
Moncada.
Ooh, that's sexy. Go ahead, sorry.
Anyways, but the moment that he's about to get interesting and going to the fact that like, it's because of there are some reasons I don't really feel like explaining, but he feels that his family is owed this treasure after many years from Magellan. Yes, that Magellan. And
super ironic that his motive is his family and he kills his grandfather to do something.
His father.
Sorry, you're so right.
Big mistake. Wow.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
But and so the moment he like gets it's about to become interesting when he's like when he's basically laying out the character motivation for you, the actual antagonist slices his throat. So it's like, okay, the moment this character is about to get interesting, instead you have him supplanted by a significantly less interesting character that was Braddock. And not only was Braddock so freaking boring as a character, but the worst performance in this film.
The worst performance of the film. You're completely correct. And it was partially the stale, like just generic action movements. But I would say even more than that is the absolutely static and immovable, like default, like sexy female lead voice that was so distracting. I was God, do we really got to do this?
The issue be a
character.
Was that was the issue. There was no character.
Right.
And so I imagine Teddy Gabrielle, who played Braddock, did she do a good job? No. But obviously, like, she stuck to what she figured what the character was.
Right.
But there's such a lack of direction. Mind you, once again, do I think she was good? No. Do I think anybody helped her? Hell no.
No way.
She was left out there to dry.
Right.
Okay? Like, she was not good, but nobody helped her, which made it significantly worse. And so then when she kills who you thought was the antagonist and then essentially replaces him, you're like, why is she doing this? Because she has less interesting qualities than the character she replaced.
Yes.
And so I'm just bored out of my mind whenever she's on screen.
Why in the hell are we replacing her? Replacing Antonio Banderas with her whenever you just spent so much time in the movie giving me Antonio Banderas' backstory.
And
why were you not building her?
And
why was I not
exactly.
finding out more about who the hell she is? Because I still barely know who the she is.
Because I'm not going to 100% disagree with the idea of like who you thought was the antagonist. No, wait, no, there's another antagonist.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree conceptually with the pure idea by itself. But if you're not going to properly build to that moment, then it is the worst thing that you can do. Exacerbated by the fact that 2 seconds after she kills Mankata, Chloe Fraser, who's played by Sophia Ali, gold medal by the way. Yeah, that's right. I said it.
Wow, what a drop. What a drop.
In this scene, it's probably the
I
funniest.
do like her a lot in this movie.
She's great. She's once again not helped. No direction given to her. No. But it was like, I like your instincts.
But on a scene-by-scene basis, knew what she was doing.
I like your instincts. I like what you're doing in this scene.
Helped Tom a lot. We'll get to her.
But it's probably one of the funniest shots in this movie, and not purposefully, is that Braddock is standing over the dead body of Mankata. You see to the right of the screen, there's Chloe Fraser, played by Sophia Ali, and she just sort of slinks away like a ghost, and she just wisps away. She just takes 2 steps back, and she's gone from the screen. And then not even 5 seconds later, Braddock is like, "Where's Chloe?" And it's like, she was just right here. Like, you're really not going to keep her under wraps right now? Right. And then there's also like 5 other guys in the room, and they all lose her just like that.
Easy as that, man.
Now, it's so stupid.
Now, okay, if you are an actor in this movie, what do you do? Let's say that you are, let's say that you get Antonio Banderas' part.
Okay.
What do you do?
The thing is, so like, this is also, I guess, what I'm trying to learn as well, partially as an actor, is just when you get a good script, it's so easy sometimes. It just lifts itself off of the page, right? There are multiple plays I can account. I will not bore the audience with that. But there are scripts like that. We've all read them, okay?
Yeah.
Now, occasionally, we will come across and do a project with a script that is boring as all hell, okay?
Yeah.
And that is devoid of life. Then we got to figure out a way to implement character into the character that we have. I guess that would be the big thing, right? But the thing is, hindsight is 2020 as well. That's the biggest thing that's like difficult for me to say. And so part of it is, well, I want to trust my instincts as an actor. But if you have no character to go off of, are your instincts actually just worth holding on to? You know, especially when everybody else around you is phoning in their performances.
Right. I think it's also difficult whenever you do all your table work and you do all of your pre-production stuff as an actor, and if you have a script that's not going to actually spell it out for you, then you kind of do just have to make it up for yourself.
Yeah. And supply your own motivation.
Right. So yes, supply all of your own everything. And just start finding shit. So you're basically just making it, like writing your own character, but without writing anything new. Just using neutral scene shit to figure yourself out. I would like to talk about the release of this movie, as well as the producer side of it. Whenever we come back after a word from our sponsor. All right, so we left off at the very end of our last segment talking about the production, right? The production of this film. Now, I'm thinking that this film, I think, has one glaring issue.
Yeah?
In my mind, that issue is, why the heck did it not come out in the summertime? This is a summer film. This is a summer blockbuster, summer action movie. I'm confused. Why was this not released in the summertime whenever all the other ones of this genre are released? Now, this is what I've come to this is the conclusion I've come to, is that I think why this movie came out at the time that it did is because it is purely a project that is dependent on what, Danny? What is this project dependent on? In terms of like its success, the amount of tickets that it sells, who is the one person that is going to bring tickets to this movie? I mean, Mark Wahlberg, kind of, but like
it's Tom Holland.
It's Tom Holland.
Okay, that's right. What you're saying. Okay.
If it's Tom
Trick
Holland,
question.
what is the best time to capitalize on Tom Holland's monetary value?
I suppose the summer.
Maybe the summer. I'm thinking directly after No Way Home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because if they had waited till the summer,
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Spider-Man No Way Home, yes. Now, if they had waited till the summer, sure, they probably still would have gotten a little bit of success in the movie. They would have been competing against movies that were very clear. I think they're aware enough to know that there are plenty of movies that are coming out that are clearly better than this. No matter what action movie's coming out this summer, it will probably be better than this. But I think a lot of it has to do with they're just riding on the success on the back of Tom Holland's absolute just explosive Spider-Man my life. Spider-Man No Way Home. I think.
Do you hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Are you saying that monetarily this movie was unsuccessful?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying
because this movie has made almost double its budget.
No, I believe that.
Worldwide gross.
No, I'm saying that I think that it has done that well because they released it in such a strange time of the year where not a whole lot of movies are coming out right now.
Batman just came out, but this movie's been out for a couple of weeks, all the same.
Right. As well as right after Spider-Man No Way Home, which was, a worldwide, absolutely crushed in the box office. Yeah. Everybody wants more Tom Holland right now.
Yeah.
How much Tom Holland do you get popping up on your For You page? Or on your YouTube recommended? Or random shit?
Not that many, but it's mostly Spider-Man related stuff.
Sure.
Not necessarily Tom Holland specific.
Right, but you've seen his face pop up in your recommended page.
Yeah, here and there, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that is probably going to fade in a couple months. And I think they are riding on that wave.
They're capitalizing on the opportunity of the success that Spider-Man has brought for the actor that is Tom Holland. Sure. This movie is super duper successful financially.
Pretty smart producer moves. I think what I'm trying to say is that they're very aware of what this movie is, what it's supposed to be, which is a cash grab. It's a cash cow.
And with the sort of post-credit scene as well, it's trying to set itself up for a franchise, or at the very least, another movie. It's setting itself up for more possibilities in the future, right? This is, in terms of how the story is set up and the cliffhangers that are left, this is not a one-and-done deal. There are still, loose threads to be tied.
Right. Now, do you think, because a lot of our issues that we've had so far are coming from people that had high expectations because we enjoyed the video game so much. For the people that do not know the video game, do you think that it would be that bad of a movie still?
I would
a standalone movie.
I think at that point it would just be like a textbook B action movie, right? We've hardly talked about the action. I think
we haven't.
I think most of the action in the film is all right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to count the cargo plane, the back hatch being open, because that is a page ripped from the third game.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just gonna consider that null and void in terms of the creativity department. Now,
Sure.
However, the final act of the film has two different helicopters carrying two different
That was so sick.
ships from centuries ago, and a lot of creativity was there with guys swinging across the ships, with the helicopters and the ships, avoiding each other, with them colliding with each other at one point, with one lifting above and below, and then there was an anchor that was put down, and then it was a nice slant that we got of the setting per se
diagonals.
of. Yes, exactly. Beautiful. We love diagonals in theater. We love diagonals. That was some really solid action.
Yeah.
But everything else that surrounds it is okay, it's serviceable.
Right.
That's what this movie is at best.
Right.
It's serviceable. It's fine. Like, it can just get away with some of this stuff. It can just get away with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, even though when they are in scenes together and it's dry as dirt, they're charismatic enough on their own.
Right.
And it's like, it's okay. It's fine. That even though, like, the antagonists are really uninteresting, like, the action is, like, solid enough and pretty tense at points, too. Like, I'm able to give it that, sure. And that's what it is at best. But at the same time, I'd just be like, watch a different action movie.
Right.
Watch a different action movie that either does itself dramatically, something more interesting, or the action is more interesting.
Right.
This is super middle of the road, not really sure what it wants to be, and so it just kind of sinks itself into the middle of the water, is what I think. It's fine at best.
Now, I'm interested in the... Oh crap! I blanked. I'm so sorry.
Very good.
I'm so sorry. I blanked. Like
one gripe that I had was that it was a consistent usage of these 2 golden crosses that were keys for a couple of puzzles. We love puzzles. We always love puzzles.
Oh my god! That's literally what I was about to say. I'm sorry. You took the words right out
So
of my
there
mouth.
were 2 things that really bothered me about just like structurally how they set up that segment of the film. When they were using those keys for puzzles, it was the fact that those 2 keys were used for, I want to say, maybe 5 different puzzles in a row.
Yep.
It was just a matter of putting the dang thing into a hole.
Every time.
It was 5 different things in a row.
Why not
like that was
the key
test?
takes you to another key, and that key is the
or just
something
like the key is only good for one thing, and then
right,
just
and then
have
you
the test be its own
puzzle
test.
for the next. Right.
Exactly. As opposed to always being related to the same key. Why do that? Then it was also another thing. The movie makes a big freaking deal about the way to turn the key. And so when they first try the key and they turn it clockwise, this contraption shoots a bunch of arrows out and almost kills Mark Wahlberg Sully, right? And so they make a big deal about that. So then they turn it counterclockwise, and it worked. So when you use the key for the last time, and then you turn it clockwise, you're clearly not paying attention in terms of storytellers. You're not paying attention to what you just did 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And so it's that sort of like narrative inconsistency that's littered all over throughout the movie. And it's like, what it says to me is that you don't care enough to keep your ducks in a row. This was not a big enough priority to keep your story consistent, not only from a MacGuffin point of view, but then that trickles into, this character, It's a lot of, shrugging of the shoulders that it can trickle into other things that is where it can start.
Yeah.
And if you make a big deal about something that a MacGuffin does, then you gotta stay consistent with that, or else you're being inconsistent to your own fucking text.
Right. Now, it's not, for me, it's not even necessarily just that the puzzles are kind of shitty. It's more that I think we need more puzzles. I think that one of the things that's so appealing about the game is that like you're talking about the gameplay, right? And like there's a story, but the story is aided by the action, which you are like trying to perform these crazy tasks, but also the puzzles. Like there's a lot to figure out in the game. I mean, not like at like Outer Wilds level, but still a lot of puzzles, right? I wish that they had a couple more puzzles in the movie, and I would have been okay with the movie adding another 10 or 20 minutes. I would have been okay with a longer movie if you would have allowed me, as the audience member, a little bit more time to go on the journey with Nathan Drake. It felt like I was watching Nathan Drake solve puzzles rather than being able to solve it with him. Does that make sense?
You are so right.
Like so many times where they're
right.
like, here's a puzzle, here's a solution. And I'm like, whoa, I wanted to solve that puzzle. You know what I mean? And that was really frustrating.
How much more enjoyable would it be
Right.
if you solved that puzzle at the same time
pace.
as the protagonist?
Right.
That is super fulfilling as an audience member.
Yeah.
And a beautiful, wonderful moment that you could experience.
And also would have been really good in terms
it's
of...
our favorite moments in films.
Absolutely.
When we have that discovery.
Whenever we find out something and then we see see them find out at the same time. You feel connected to them, like in terms of like you know like audience to character, but also that it is such such an immaculate a pacing moment for the story, and you're just in it. Yeah,
I'm gonna do just a major callback moment for the
go
both
ahead.
of us. Right, this is a spoiler for the movie when Marnie was there, very specific. But you know the moment when you realize, oh, the woman that's being discussed and the girl that Anna was seeing was her grandmother.
Yeah.
Like, you know that moment? There was no sort of realization moments in this movie when it's from a game series that has puzzles, and the point of puzzles is the realization moment.
Yes, exactly. And also puzzles that relate to the story somehow, please.
Yeah, well, and just like use the puzzles as narrative opportunities. You know,
Right.
like we're even though we enjoyed the puzzles from the games, right? And of course, like we want more puzzles, whatever. Not just because the games had them, but because the games did them well, and we want to see the movie do them well.
So like for instance, there's it kills me that the puzzles in this movie, but also a little bit, I guess, in the franchise, but especially in this movie, are puzzles that don't really have much to do with the story. So, like, for instance, this is just an example, like, not necessarily from the movie, but this is just something that I'm making up, right? If I have, if I have a puzzle in a story where I'm having you go on a journey to find like this magical piece of music that's like written for a piano or something, right? Who knows? Then if one of the puzzle pieces that I give you, right, is a crossword puzzle, it wouldn't really make any fucking sense for me to give you the New York Times crossword puzzle from May 11th, 1998. Just picking some random crossword puzzle. No, I would pick a crossword puzzle where you were finding words that has something to do with the actual just movement of the story or the next thing you have to do. The fact that this movie, whenever you come to the as you're going on the primary puzzle in the story, which is the key thing that you're talking about, like that's the biggest puzzle that they solve that I wish they would have done more of.
And the first act of the film is devoted to getting this key.
Right, and then they finally are in this like kind of catacomb looking like underground type layer situation.
Cavern, yeah.
Sure, and they have they start using the key in a bunch of different ways, and it takes them different places. Now, in that part, I really, really wish that we would have gotten hints along the way that led us to the next place, right? Because it should feel like one big puzzle rather than a bunch of like random, disjointed, not really.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, like puzzles. A big sort of like thematic like puzzle element that's being tied together.
Right.
There's actually, for example, in the second game,
yeah,
there is a great puzzle where there's a giant room and like it's a statue in the center of the room,
right,
and like you can move the statue, and the statue brings you to different parts of the room to solve different puzzles. But like the sort of like being the heart of that whole section was the statue itself, and there was no heart to these sort of like strings of puzzles. Right. They were all very like, for the most part, like devoid of the next one. Right. For the most part.
Yes, absolutely. And that was super, or at least like stay on theme or on brand or something. Like talk to like an escape room artist or some shit. Like it's really basic shit. Like the Goonies. You seen the Goonies? You've never seen the Goonies. That's
sorry.
Okay, buddy. That's okay. Don't worry about it. But like at one point in the movie, like they are like they hit a dead end, but they find like these this like kind of almost piano looking thing, and there's like this really old crumpled up sheet music that they have to play, and if they play the wrong notes, then the floor falls out from under them. But if they get it right, then they get to like then there's a
they move on.
They move on, right? So there's a gate that opens up, but. Of course, they're not going to play some random music. They're going to play like a pirate theme because they're on a pirate adventure. And I really wish there was a little bit more attention to those puzzles here in this movie. Now, the big one that we have yet to touch on that I think it's really time to delve into this specific person is Chloe Fraser. not necessarily Sophia in the movie, but Chloe Fraser as the actor, because I think.
You mean as a character?
So
you said
sorry,
Chloe
sorry.
Fraser as the
other
actor.
way around.
Yes, I got you.
Chloe
Fraser as
but
the character.
Sophia
Ali
Ali as the actor.
Got it.
Now, what makes her so compelling in this movie, and what makes her so easy to watch, is the fact that, well, I mean, she's listening. Obviously, she has, she understands what she wants at all times, but also she really understands, the moment to moment what's supposed to be happening in the story. It's almost like, what's interesting is that Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg are both decent actors, and they do an okay job, but they need a director. And I think what's so cool about Sophia Ali is that she kind of directs herself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's aware of the arc of Chloe Fraser, and she is aware of how the last scene affected me, and how, where I need to get to by the end of this scene,
Mm-hmm.
that an actor shouldn't necessarily have to worry about. But if you're not really being directed in a movie, she probably should be able to think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. She just does a really solid job, particularly in the listening department when
Right.
it comes to those more dialogue heavy scenes.
Right. Now, that's a skill that I'm back and forth on, whether or not I want my actors to have that skill. Because,
What do you mean?
for instance, we have a friend that is, on a moment-to-moment basis, one of my favorite actors. His name's Thomas. I think he's really, really talented, truly. And in terms of on a moment-to-moment basis, his ability to listen and respond, and his actual scene work is really, really solid.
Are you about to put Thomas on blast?
I
And
guess
you
a
used his
little
name
bit.
too.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I guess
I was
I
about
could
to
have just said it
not.
was a fake name. It's a fake name. There, I said it.
No, I think he knows this. That there are some times where Thomas needs to be reminded of the story as a whole. Which, whenever I'm with Thomas, or if I'm seeing him being directed, or if I'm directing him, I don't think he necessarily should have to worry about that. That he should have a director that helps him with that, or he should have a director, because that's a director's job. At the same time, it did seem to be pretty useful for Sophia Ali in this instance.
Well, there's got to be a dialogue between the actor and the director, and it's not like a one-way street for those roles. There's a lot of collaboration and working with one another to get to where the both of those individuals want to get.
Right.
This director was not helping.
Yeah.
And so then it was up to the actors to just get to where they need to get to. For the most part, 90% of them did not succeed.
Correct.
I would say Sophia Ali, could she have done a better job in this movie? Yeah, she also could have.
Yeah.
At the same time, she was on the right track and was being more self-sufficient than most other people on screen. And
Yeah.
that's just a fact of the matter.
Yeah, that is the truth. Now, I'm also, it kind of makes me think about all the actors that I've seen over the past couple years, that they, at first glance, I'm thinking to myself, man, they're just playing their cast type, and that really bothers me. Why can't they really sink their teeth into this and really, give us something specially unique, dig a little deeper? Why do we have to hire Mark Wahlberg or Tom Holland to play this Tom Holland trope, charming, charismatic,
Or Mark Wahlberg to play the Mark Wahlberg trope. And sometimes
Yeah.
it works. Instant Family, it works.
right? But but that's the thing, is in those instances where it works, it's not because he's gotten so good at playing the trope. It's because the trope is based off that.
Yeah.
He was really good in that, and so directors and producers saw that and were like, "Man, that was really good. Could you do that again in this other context, and where it doesn't really make sense, but the audience is going to accept it?"
And even devoid of the fact of, once again, Tom Holland is not really Nate from the games. And once
Right.
again, Mark Wahlberg is not really solely
Right.
from the games. That's fine, but it still doesn't work for what they were
Right.
doing in this film anyways.
And
it's
it's sad, because at first glance, I judge these people, and I'm like, man, I really wish that they, I really wish that they would put some time and effort into it, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, there is a part of me that's it's not their fault.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
They're,
Once again,
like-
we've seen great performances by them. It
Sure,
happens.
But so many of these movies are like that in terms of they hire you to do a very specific thing. It's almost like
Yeah.
playing a piece of music. You know, it's like obviously I would like to be playing Mozart and Bach every night, but if you want me to play, the wedding march because I'm playing at a wedding, then I guess I'll crank it out because I have to do it every night to make money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Listen, they went and they did their job.
They got their check.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I don't even mean that as a disparagement.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I hope if they're doing another Uncharted movie, and there's a part of me that I hope they do. I hope it is a different director with a better vision. I hope the script is much better as well.
Yep.
And I hope that they can find a way to make those interpretations of those characters work for that setting, for that series, right?
Yeah.
Because they nailed it for the video game series. Clearly, they're doing something different here. All right, it. Lean into it and make that work.
Right. Now, if you were going to cast this movie, would you have gone a similar route as they did, which is, lean away from the original characters of the franchise, like make it something a little more palatable, a little more easy for like family to like family viewing or whatever, or would you have stayed true? And whatever your choice may be, are there any actors that come to mind in terms of casting that you would have gone for?
So the tricky thing about Tom Holland is that even though he's great in his own Tom Hollandy way, like Tom Holland when they were filming this was 23, 24, and if he looks like that, that's what you're gonna get for the next 5 to 10 years, give or take. Like if he's not gonna grow facial hair now, then he freaking won't.
Right.
And the thing is, like, even though he's jacked as all hell, and I'm jealous, I'm not gonna lie. And it's a hunk of a body. All right,
true.
I'm gonna. Whew.
He's working.
But the thing is, he still looks like a child.
He does, yeah.
And oh no, I just coughed into the microphone. That's a fine. That's a fine. That's a penalty right there.
But he looks like a jacked 19-year-old,
yeah, that's the
not
thing.
a jacked 24-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he's drinking alcohol in this movie, and I'm like, he shouldn't be allowed to do that.
I thought the same thing.
Tom Holland is older than me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, he shouldn't be allowed to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
That's the experience that I'm having. So, like, once again, he's great in his own way, but in just purely in terms of a look, and I'm like, okay, that's what they're going for. I disagree, but whatever. And once again, with the Mark Wahlberg thing, just give that man a director. Like, I want to believe that Mark Wahlberg can, like, churn out his own version of Sully. Do I necessarily like it? No, because Sully was my favorite character in the original game series, and nothing's going to change that. That's fine. Like, that's an impossible task.
Yeah.
But, like, can you help him out? Like, that's the big thing. Like, so is it really the casting that's at fault? The casting doesn't help, but the casting is not what is preventing this from being a good movie, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say make Daniel Day-Lewis Sully. Like, that's not going to solve much.
Right.
That'll solve a few things, but that's just putting a Band-Aid over a gaping wound.
Nice.
One thing also I really wanted to bring up really fast was the lack of music from the video game series. Now,
Oh, interesting.
typically not really a big deal, except for the fact that the music in this movie is really, really boring.
Yeah.
And the music from
the game
series, composed by Greg Edmondson, is really good. And they were so shy from using the music from the original series, and it was, first of all, disappointing. And secondly, when they finally used a singular track from the game series, which is the main theme, which is Nate's theme, when finally, in the least climactic moment ever, is when Tom Holland finishes, the Nathan Drake look and finally puts the gun holster on his back. You just hear very faintly in the background Nate's theme. That's how they do it.
Yeah.
And it's a really good theme. I would challenge you, if you haven't listened to it, or if you forgot how it sounds, just pause this podcast and listen to that theme. And listen to some of the other music from the games. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's certainly better than what the movie delivered. And so it does make me question, why was Greg Edmondson not part of this project? Because tonally speaking, like, the games are cinematic in feel.
Yeah.
I would be hard-pressed to think that Greg Edmondson couldn't, compose for the film. So why didn't he is the big thing. So it was lacking that department, as well as just like really obvious stupid product placement, like the Papa John's and the Mercedes Benz. I don't think there's much else to say, but it's like, can you at least be not as obvious about this cash grab, please, and focus on the movie?
I'm also very interested in they made a very specific choice of not having Nathan Drake and Chloe Fraser kiss, or like whenever they did like have intimate moments, like they weren't really all that physical. And here we go. This is a 2-minute warning. They weren't really all that physical, and I think it has something to do with the fact that Tom Holland and Zendaya are like maybe the most famous couple on the planet right now.
If I am a filmmaker, I couldn't give less of a crap about that.
I agree, but if I'm a producer, I do give a crap about that.
Oh God, I mean,
so sad, but true. I actually think that has something to do with
it. Maybe as a producer, like you're trying to like make it so like you don't make Nate look bad, so you give yourself the potential of introducing Elena as a character later on and have that be the romantic interest, and not force Nate to be a little bit scummy and have to choose.
Sure. But I think that was a specific choice. Them trying
do you want to give the reckless speculation?
Reckless speculation all the way on that one. I'm very confident in, because of Tom Holland and Zendaya's standing right now in the public eye. I think that has something to do with the physical intimacy of this movie. Danny, what are your final thoughts?
It's a mediocre movie. It's fine. The action is fine, but I would honestly just fast forward to the end. That's what I would say. Fast forward to the end. It's not really worth watching. Just play the games. Like, it doesn't offer itself enough interesting things. It's boring. It's mostly boring. The action's okay, and everybody phones it in. I hope they do a second one so they can make the second one better and get the taste out of my mouth, because there is potential there. And maybe they will dip themselves into the supernatural elements from the games, and I'm fine that they didn't do it in this film, but hopefully they do something right next time.
If I was going to sum it up in one sound, it would be, oh. So, Danny, what are we watching next week?
We are watching the live-action adaptation, and we're closing out the saga of media. Cowboy Bebop, the one that came out on Netflix, I believe, in 2021, starring John Cho.
Oh, God.
Let's jam.